It's every day we make decisions from 25-cent decisions to multi-million-dollar decisions based on the weather. And so we need to know what it's like.
Here we are back on Closer Look on this Wednesday, the 26th day of November with Michael Friscolanti. I'm Scott Sexsmith. Okay, I want to make it official. Today will be the last day that I will be in a good mood for about 6 months.
I've never seen you in a good mood. What do you mean? What's different today?
Well, because I looked at the forecast. Snow tonight, 5 centimeters where we are. Tomorrow, possibly another 5 to 10. Mm-hmm. And then it just goes downhill.
So it makes you grumpy the winter, eh? Don't you embrace it and snowshoe? And
no, I have 2 words for it. Snowshoe are not those words. I've never been a fan of winter. I've always lived in the north, and I don't know why I do this to myself.
You should move, I thought I always see you at the ski in those tight pants, like going down the hill.
Yeah, that's what you want to see, this in anything tight,
thought you were
let alone tight pants.
The king of the hill, I thought, no?
No. I'm more like the guy on the show, the king of the I'm more like that guy.
He's in Texas, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have moved down there. Oh. It is true. It took me a while to embrace the north in terms of the winter, but I have. I really do like.
Have you?
Yeah, the family skis. I don't. I can't move, but I watch them ski. Snowshoeing became a thing. We have snowshoe. Yeah. We do try to get snowshoeing. Yep. You have to do. And then, of course, the kids are still young enough. They play hockey, so that takes up your whole winter too.
Of course.
Just go from rink to rink. But yeah, I mean, it is a little depressing just because I did enjoy the summer. Was a good summer.
Yeah, and I will say this: when you're in a nice, warm, cozy home, it's beautiful to look at. Mm-hmm. But I find, and maybe you do as well, but I'm a little bit older than you. The older I get, the harder I find it.
Yeah.
I'm cold all the time. I don't like the wet and the slush.
Yeah. Well, as I've shared a couple of times on this show, my mobility is not very good, so I use a cane these days. And there's sometimes when the storm's so bad, I look out the window and I'm like, well, I guess that's my day. I'll just stay. I'm not going to go out there. I'm going to slip and fall. And
now, do you put like a pick attachment
on
I do
that have
thing?
One of those legs like a dagger. And
I wasn't asking to be a smart ass.
I want to get a switchblade one, but apparently they're illegal. So I don't have that. There is a reason we're talking about the weather. We're not making small talk.
No,
we don't do small talk because we don't get along, so we don't do that kind of stuff. It's all for real.
Yes, it is. Today's guest, probably the best known weather person, certainly that this country and maybe beyond has ever seen.
Yes, David Phillips. He's with Environment Canada I'm sure for decades. We'll ask him about that. He's definitely the most recognized climatologist in the country. And he's just great in the sense you see him everywhere. You see him on the news, you see him in newspapers. He just is a very knowledgeable guy in the weather, takes it very seriously. And he's lovely because I emailed him yesterday afternoon and said, hey, would you jump on the show tomorrow to talk about polar vortex? Because that word's trending all over the place. Not that we chase trends, but everyone's talking about it again, right? And so he's going to help us. We're going to pretend we're at a grade 9 science class. He's going to teach us about polar vortex and a whole bunch of other things.
All signs are pointing towards a colder than normal December in Canada, and by all accounts, the dreaded polar vortex is making a comeback this season. What is a polar vortex? Now is as good a time as any to get a refresher course, and here to talk about that and all things weather-related is Canada's most recognized climatologist, David Phillips. David, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being here this evening.
Well, thank you, Scott and Michael. It's just a delight to be with you and, to talk about our favorite topic of conversation, the weather.
That's right. Absolutely. We're definitely getting into that. For those of you who don't know, David, I do want to point out you're a legend in this field. You're a longtime climatologist at Environment Canada. And you're definitely a veteran of interviews like this. I mean, I'm assuming you've done hundreds, if not thousands. And I was just reminiscing. I feel like I've been a journalist for a century, but one of my first assignments was a weather story, and I'm sure I phoned you. I remember talking to you as a young journalist. And so, and you're just so recognizable and so trustworthy, right? So we do appreciate the chance to have this conversation with you. And I just love the fact that when I sent you that email yesterday afternoon, you're like, sure, no problem. I'll jump on and talk to you. So
wow.
Is it a burden at all to be in such high demand, David?
It isn't, and to tell you the truth, I've actually kind of transitioned from senior climatologist to climatologist because I really retired last year. But I've just been as busy as I was, and I love it. I mean, I just absolutely have such a fascination, but it's people's interest in the weather. I mean, I think if I lived in Malta or Cyprus, nobody would be interested in talking about the weather. But here in Canada, boy, it doesn't matter from whether it's from Tuktoyaktuk or in Toronto or wherever. I mean, Canadians want to learn about what's happening. They always think, guys, that the weather is unique to their particular community. They often say, if you don't like the weather, wait around for a few minutes and it'll change. What's in your backyard is different than your front yard. And that's really one of the characteristics, I think, of really Canada-wide. It's a need to know what the weather is, and you can't leave home without getting a weather word. And one of the favorite statistics I have is that you can't unite Canadians on any subject, but when it comes to wanting to know the weather, we claim that 94% of Canadians get a forecast at least once a day. Yes. And it decides what you wear, where you're going to go shopping, whether you leave early or go golfing or what have you. It's just the need to know. I would think that in other areas, gosh, it must be boring when the weather is the same day after. You can set your watch to the weather. That's right. And that certainly isn't the case in Canada.
That's true. Well, if this episode does well, David, I think we'll just turn it into a weather podcast. I think you're right. People, maybe they'll check us every day for the weather. So you mentioned you're officially retired. So you're no longer, but you're still on call. You still answer to your work email?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I still have the permission to talk about the weather. I can share models that we have. Our winter forecast is coming out sort of early next week, and I can certainly talk a little bit about that. But yeah, my phone still rings, and I just love the chance to really help to Canadians understand a subject that they feel passionate about. And so it's not like aircraft of World War II. It is the weather. It's something that's every day we make decisions, from 25-cent decisions to multi-million-dollar decisions based on the weather. And so we need to know what it's like.
All right, David, let's switch gears to that dreaded term that's almost like the dark villain in a movie, the polar vortex. There's just something about that phrase that seems to make people anxious. Can you explain exactly what it is in a way that we can all understand?
Yeah. Well, Scott, it's like the word weather bomb or atmospheric river. It's like the witches of November, storms on the Great Lakes. I mean, these things drive fear in our hearts. We hide under the bed when we hear polar vortex. And so it's one of those, I think it's because of midnight shifts that meteorologists are always coming up with terms to scare the bejeebies out of us, I think. And hey, let's be straight though. Every cold air mass is not a polar vortex. I mean, Toronto can be frigid and Guelph could be, in a deep freeze. And it could just be Siberian air, Arctic air, or Yukon air, or what have you. Polar vortex is, yes, it's cold air. It tends to be intensely cold and it lasts quite a little while, but its process is very different than just other cold air. But we sort of say every time there's a cold wave, we think it's the polar vortex. It's been around since 1950. I remember hearing the word, but it really is. Let me explain. It's sort of interesting because it is at the high Arctic, at the top of the world, the North Pole, and also the South Pole. There's a vortex, a kind of a spinning top that in a counterclockwise direction, and it spins around there, around and around, and it is there in the summer, winter, spring, and fall. But in the winter, it's very strong, and it's surrounded by polar winds, strong jet stream winds, and it helps to confine it. It contains that cold air. And then occasionally, though, that spinning top, like a child's top, you poke it, and it kind of wiggles and wobbles and spills out. And then the polar vortex leaves home and goes southward, you say. And so that's really the difference. So when I hear the word strong polar vortex, it doesn't bother me. I know it's going to stay put. But when it weakens, then those walls of wind break down and it spills out, leaks out, looks like more of a balloon than a circular top. And so really what happens is that the stratosphere where jet aircraft fly, there's a little bit of cold air right down to the surface. And then occasionally what happens, there's warming. Now, guys, I'm talking about warming from -70 to -30. I mean, that's a 40-degree warming. And it's enough to nudge that, to kind of poke that polar vortex. And so that's what it does. It begins to get away from its circular vortex and spill out. And it takes all that cold air with it. So it leaves the Arctic and it goes right down to Tallahassee, Florida, without any change. And it's cold air. It's dense air. That's what cold air is. It just hugs the ground. It's like molasses flowing on the surface. And it brings all the cold air with it. And there's no mountain barriers going west to east to block it. It just has a free flow from the Arctic to the tropics. No, it doesn't check in at the border. There's no tariffs on it. It's just free air that just moves all the way down, and it brings its cold characteristics with it. So that's kind of what the polar vortex is.
That's the best explanation. Now I completely understand. Thank you for that, David. And it doesn't happen all the time, right? There are years go by where it doesn't.
This one is early. I mean, this is the earliest I've ever heard it in 70 years of hearing about this thing. This is the earliest. It typically, guys, it occurs in sort of the dead of winter, mid-January, February. So it really just adds to the coldness of the kind of winter we have. But the fact that this is early, I think it's added to the kind of fear about it. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, is this going to be the year of the polar vortex, you say? Non-stop cold, you say? And we've had so many warm winters that this would be, and we came out of the fall in southern Ontario that was really balmy. I mean, November turned a little cooler than it's normal, but September and October, we've had about 8 or 9 months of continued warm conditions. So we're not used to it. So this would be kind of a slap in the face when we get this kind of cold air if it does come true. No guarantee that it will. It could spill over to Europe. It could go over the western part of North America or the eastern part. And so there's no guarantee that it will arrive on our doorstep. But the models seem to suggest, hey, something's happening. There's this little warming that's occurring in the stratosphere. And so get ready for the polar vortex.
Mm-hmm. This may be a dumb question, David, but how soon do you know? Like, how far in advance will you be able to analyze, data and mapping and realize, okay, it is going to be a thing?
Well, Scott, that's interesting because you actually, this warming occurs probably, and then 3 weeks later, you start getting the cold. So all of this kind of process of the warming, pushing or touching that vortex, and then it's spilling out, takes about 3 weeks. So we first saw this about the almost the third, fourth week of November, just recently. And so the forecast is that we're going to get colder likely in mid December. So, the fact that Toronto is going to warm up from like a plus 11 today to 1 tomorrow is not polar vortex. Even the fact that Winnipeg has had a temperature of about 10 degrees last week, or during, and they're going to be minus 14 for a high. So there's a difference of 25 degrees. That's not polar vortex even, but it's really a change. And so what we're saying is that I think the early start of winter might be cold because of the presence, the possibility, the added risk of having polar vortex air associated with the winter.
All right, dumb question number 2. We should keep track how many dumb questions we ask you, David. You're going to hang up on us soon. Are there some years where it skips us? There is no polar vortex?
Yeah. Oh, you're so right, Michael. I mean, it's not every year. I mean, you almost think it's every year because everybody says, well, it's another polar vortex. We're going to have a polar vortex on the weekend. Not, I mean, hey, guys, we live in the second coldest country in the world. The snowiest country in the world. It's cold and snow is who we are. So, I mean, polar vortex is just, as they say, what I fear about it most, it's intensely cold, yes. But it's the duration of it. It's not just like a week of cold air. It can go on for 2 or 3 or 2 months or so. I remember the last one we had was 2014. It turned out to be one of the coldest winters in recent years. And there were places that are traditionally cold, like Winnipeg. They had their coldest winter in over a century and a half. So it really does change the landscape. It changed the statistics. But as I say, I mean, this is just a kind of a threat on the horizon. This is not a done deal.
Let's get specific, and specifically Ontario. What are we in store for this winter, David?
Well, I mean, we've seen just recently, we've had this lake effect snow. This is the problem that we always have to worry about in Ontario. The lakes. The lakes are beautiful, but they also provide a lot of enjoyment and they're important to us, but they're hot tubs out there. And when that cold air comes down and it mixes with that warm air, it just creates very dynamic kind of situations, the lake effect snowstorm, where your life can change in front of you. I mean, you can't see I'm too old to, you'll hear how old I am when I talk about the hood ornament on your car. You can't see that when in a lake effect storm. And so this is what we're into now. This is going to be the threat until the lakes freeze over. So my sense is we're going to, yes, I think I'd bet a few loonies. In fact, we'll have a white Christmas, going to be colder than normal in December because of the open lakes and the cold air and the warm. They're like hot tubs, guys. I mean, you can't go swimming in them, but my gosh, the temperatures are like 10 or 11, 12 degrees, and you get that minus 14 air coming across it. Well, and a year ago, we saw in Gravenhurst, 140 centimeters of snow a year ago. They're probably celebrating the anniversary of that miserable storm right now. So that's the effect the Great Lakes can have. And it can cause you, I remember in that storm of Gravenhurst, a couple of hours, an hour drive from Barrie, we had a trace of snow. They had 140 centimeters of snow. The 400 was blocked. Emergency was declared. So this is the effect of the Great Lakes. But what I'm saying is the fact that we think that because of the La Nina, which generally brings us a colder winter, because of the polar vortex, we might see a kind of a tougher beginning to winter than at the end. This may just be kind of by early February, the winter might be over. The lakes are getting to freeze over, cuts down on the lake effect snow. But it's the skiers, the snowmobilers, and the ice fishers will have their moment. But don't procrastinate, because if it's safe to go for it, you should go for it and enjoy it if that's what your enjoyment is.
I'm going to hold you to that, Dave. I'm going to check in mid-February if we're out of the winter, because that would be my dream come true.
David, when it's freezing outside and people say, so much for global warming, how do you respond? What do you say to them?
Yeah, well, Scott, it's an important point. One of the things that I truly believe in is that our winters are what they used to be. And old timers will tell you this. Our winters aren't what they used to be. Of course, you had to walk to school a couple of miles, and now you're driven in a yellow vehicle. So that's right. But, there's no doubt about it that winters are different now. And we still have winter. My gosh, you have the sun we have less daylight, and the sun's lower in the sky. We do have cold, but the seasons tend to be shorter. It doesn't sort of start, in end of September and go right on through to Easter and beyond. It generally is confined to about 3 months. So we clearly know that. And so really it does give us a sense of the fact that yes, we are warmer. Our winters aren't what they used to be, but generally all seasons are that. And but we still have winter. The ski season is tougher, but skiers resorts have adjusted. They make snow now. They used to not make snow, so they have learned how to deal with that warmer condition. And so I truly believe it. And farmers are great. They understand it in variability. They know how wild the weather has been. And I think, guys, what really drives home to me the proof of climate change is not the warming temperatures. It's the extremes of weather. Mm-hmm. Weather is more extreme now. Storms are stormier, droughts are droughier, floods are floodier, because we're getting we haven't got any new weather. It's the same weather of our grandparents. It's just more intense. It's bigger, it's wilder, it's wackier. And so I think that is the temperature element that we're seeing to our normal weather is making it more extreme.
Mm-hmm. Dave, do you worry that the climate change discussion has kind of fallen off the radar, no pun intended, so to speak? Because it does feel like a decade ago it was on everyone's mind and talked about all the time. I just don't feel like I read about it in the news like I used to, or hear about it as much as I did.
Yeah, I think there's climate change fatigue out there, and it concerns me that we've just sort of, we're not doing what we should do. I had great hope in young people that they still feel that it's an issue. They want to do something about it. They want to see progress being made. But it is, it's I always think science is easy compared to politics. You think, okay, we know the world's warmer, but what do you do about it? Mm-hmm. It's something that really has to unite the world. And I think that we will do the right thing. I have a great sort of confidence in the human condition. I think we will recognize the fact that, hey, this wild weather, more expensive weather, more killing weather I think we need to do something about it. And cutting back on fossil fuels, hey, I mean, that's good. I mean, it saves you money. It saves the cleanliness of the atmosphere. And it does help to kind of cool it off, you say, and or make it less warm than it was. So no, I think that it comes in waves, but I think right now we're seeing that people seem tired about it. There's other economic issues that seem to be more important than climate change. But this is what we find generally with the big issues of a time. They sort of wane and ebb and flow.
You kind of answered my next question, but you do feel confident, say 50, 75 years from now, humanity will have figured out a way to deal with climate change long after we're all gone?
Well, I greatly believe in the science and the technology and the engineering aspect of it. I think we're headed in the right direction very slowly. And I think that the world has seen it. I mean, we're seeing that places like China and India, they're still burning fossil fuels and coal and things like this. But, in China, for example, there's more solar radiation, solar energy devices and wind and solar panels generated in that country than any country in the world. And we're seeing that the level of greenhouse gases is stabilized in China. So, I think that they're seeing it. And even under a Trump world, I mean, there are states and municipalities that are still doing the right thing in terms of cutting down the fossil fuel. Because what we realize that it is to our advantage economically. And even farmers, I love farmers. I speak to farmers all the time. They don't always believe what I say about climate change, but they recognize that governments are going to mandate that they get out of the greenhouse gases. They're going to save money. It's good for the bottom line. They know their customers are going to insist on it, and their opposition or their competition's already doing it. So I think it's going to be really the moving in the right direction. It's going to be a little slower, but I think we're going to get there.
David, I want to park the snow for a second and talk about golf if I can. Why is it on a golf day with my buddies, when the weather looks like it's not going to be a great day on the course, we're all looking at different weather apps and we're all getting a different story? In other words, the Weather Network may say, oh, the radar is going to clear at 3. Environment Canada may say, stay inside. It's not going to be great. How can the weather picture for one area be so different on these different applications?
Scott, that's one of the complaints I get most of from people. They say they go to the forecast and they get it, and it's almost like I think people look for the forecast that they want to get. You see, and so I think that's probably something. There's some truth to that. But it's that people have different models. They have different. The observations are maybe the same. They have different slants. And I know in the media, not to criticize the media, but
well, you can.
It depends. Okay, program directors sometimes like spectacular weather. Weather that scares us. You see, it's better for ratings, they think. So often I'll hear my good meteorologists saying, "Well, it's going to be 10 to 20 centimeters plus," and then they're forced to say, "Well, it's going to be 25 to 30 centimeters." I mean, it almost is reason why you want to tune in and get more. You say, but I always say that what you probably should do is just go to one forecast and stay with it and just do your own little testing to see, well, does that really turn out to be true? And the thing is, the weather can change very differently. It's not as if it's just in the hour it can change. And one of the things, when I first began my career, people would just say, is it going to rain tomorrow? And now they want to know, well, okay, is it going to rain in North York? It's going to start at 2:00. When's it going to end? And how much rain are we going to get? So our expectations for the weather has changed dramatically over the years. And yet we can sometimes deliver on that because we have the radar and the satellites and the supercomputers. And so we can give people that information, but we're not always right. I mean, we still will always be jobs for weather people because, hey, you can put a man on the moon, but you can't necessarily get tomorrow's forecast correctly to satisfy the golfers or the fishers or farmers.
All right, now here's my follow-up to that. The one gauge that we consistently use is the POP, the probability of precipitation. Well, it's only 30%, 40%, we're good to go. Can you explain what POP means? Because I think there's some misunderstanding there.
Oh, God, you've got the hotbed of misunderstanding out there in terms of weather. The second most favorite question I get is, what is POP? Is probability of precipitation. And it was actually driven by the media. We weren't really anxious to do that 30, 40 years ago when we issued it. But, we yielded. And so what it is just, it doesn't, well, I'll tell you, it's easy to tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that, say, a 30% chance. It doesn't mean over your forecast area, it's going to rain 30% of the area. No. It doesn't mean it's going to rain 30% of the time. What it means is this, it's a little complicated. It means that in similar kind of weather situations, it rained 30 times and it didn't rain 70 times. So it's the confidence that the meteorologist has, the forecaster has, in whether you're going to see that rain. Now, what I tell people is take a percentage and just translate it into something else. Like, for example, 30%. I don't carry an umbrella for 30%. But if it was 60%, okay, I'd have a game plan to say, okay, be ready for a change of the weather. So anything like 30, and one thing we never say, or you'll hear, is 50%. What does 50% mean? It's like flipping a coin, So we don't do that. So 30%, I wouldn't even do anything. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't cancel the social engagement or change the outdoor wedding ceremony. But it was 60%. I might say I'm going to have a backup plan for that.
We all just decided to buy good rain gear.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of like your percentage of your probability of hitting a putt is like 99% chance of missing. That's right. So that was fascinating, David. This has been a completely fascinating conversation. Is there anything else? We could talk weather all day, but you obviously have a life in place. The question I have is, do you wake up in the morning caring what the weather is? You're such an expert at weather, or do you just know you just go about your day no matter what the weather is?
Well, I kind of do. I always feel I have to have a forecast in my hip pocket, you see, because people I meet in the grocery store or just on a walk, they will often, but they sometimes blame you for the weather.
Yes.
My gosh, I've had death threats, guys.
What?
Because people said, you said it was going to be a nice weekend. And, it turned out that they were, kind of crazy people. But anyways, it shows you that how serious people take their weather. But, I think Canadians are always forgiving because, if they think we're only 60% right, we're 93% right. That's what our models tell us. That is getting the temperature right today within 2 or 3 degrees. So that's what our models tell us. But, Canadians think we never get it right as often as we think. There's that joke about, meteorologists were invented to make economists look good, like you say. Well, I think there's some truth to it. But, people are passionate about the weather. But, they're very forgiving because they realize this, guys. In this country, it's hard to get the weather right. The weather's attacking us from every direction. And you can have supercomputers and radar, and you can have weather instruments, but boy, you just don't really know exactly what the weather conditions are right. And so it's always a tough thing. But we take our job very seriously. That's the thing that I think that's the greatest motivation I have for being a weather person. It matters to us. It's not just conversation piece. Yes, it is. But people are making decisions, life-preserving decisions sometimes. Imagine lobster fishermen going out in the Atlantic, and they wouldn't leave home without getting the weather word. And so I think it's important to us, and that's what motivates so many weather people.
Good stuff. David, before we let you go, anything else weather-related that we didn't touch on that perhaps we should have?
Well, my gosh, I one thing I'd love to talk to you about in the future would be big storms. We had that famous, the one I talked about a lot recently was the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that was, I mentioned, Witches of November, and that was particularly a nasty, nasty storm that was almost like a hurricane over the Great Lakes.
Yes.
And we've had some famous weather events. I've got over 33,000 weather stories I could share with you. So we've got a lot of time in the future to talk about the weather.
Well, we're going to keep you on the Rolodex, David. If it's okay, we're going to have you on a regular basis.
Yes.
Maybe every season will change. We'll catch up and see how things are going, okay?
Well, one thing I should, if we talk 2 days from now, I'd be able to give you the bottom line on what Environment Canada is saying about the forecast. But I'm going to give you a little hint. It's certainly going to be starting cooler, but maybe won't be as brutal by Valentine's Day.
I'm holding you to that, Dave.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good stuff. Here's to clear skies. David Phillips, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I so enjoyed it. Bye-bye now.
What a fantastic discussion. Weather is the one thing everyone talks about, and you could talk about it on, for hours.
Mm-hmm. Guy's a national treasure.
He is. What a beauty.
You know what? I think every journalist in Canada at some point has had a conversation with David Phillips.
No question.
He's so accommodating and so kind and so knowledgeable and trustworthy. And man, it's the truth. It's the truth about trust.
We need that.
We don't have enough. We don't have enough people that we can trust to talk about issues. But look, everyone cares about the weather. We're in for a nasty few days no matter where you are in Ontario.
That's
I think
right.
it's going to be a rough go. So if you want to learn about the polar vortex, just keep pressing rewind and learn all you want.
All right, good stuff. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. Send us a note. Tell us how you feel about the polar vortex or anything weather-related. We would love to hear from you. Tonight's show produced by Derek Turner. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.